Yo, welcome back to another Pokemon Scarlet Violet VGC video. I'm your host Jose Rocks, and today we have our October rental codes. So I did another 5 teams for this month. Last month we had some really cool teams, and we're gonna be bringing back some more cool teams for this month. So if you guys like this type of content, go ahead and leave a subscribe for me, turn on those post notifications because we're posting content at the first of every month. We are a couple of days late. It's currently the 4th that I'm posting this. I believe it's the 4th or maybe the 5th, depending on when I post the video. But I'm recording on the 4th. I am doing a lot of prep for the upcoming Milwaukee regionals that is taking place this next weekend. So that's taking a lot of my time, just making sure I get the mines in game, making sure everything is right with them, making sure that I'm prepared, travel arrangements and all that. So that's why this video is a little late, but we still got the teams out to you guys. So we're going to be starting off with the Arceus team. So Arceus has so many different forms and so many different strategies that it can use. So I'm pretty much probably going to use Arceus every month, like a different Arceus set. Last month we had the Choice Band E-Speed set with like Chien-Pao. This month we're going to be using the Fairy special set that's not physical this time. So this one's a really cool team. This team is, I've practiced with this team and I've played a couple of games on the ladder with it, and it feels really strong and really fun. So Arceus is definitely a restricted that, some of the mythicals, they don't really fit in the restricted pool with the other restricteds. But Arceus actually feels like it has a place, and it's just so many different things that it can do, and it's really strong on, especially on best of one ladder, because your opponents just don't know what it can do. But this one is going to be a Fairy Terra. I really like Xerneas, right? And I wanted a mon to kind of play like Xerneas since Xerneas is not in the game. And while this doesn't have the Fairy aura, it does have, the multi-type, which turns it into a Fairy type and also gives a stab on Fairy type moves. And the Pixie Plate turns Judgment into a Fairy type move, right? So it's a single target Fairy type move that's based on 100 power. That next to Chi-Yu with Fairy Terra is just doing massive amounts of damage, right? So it's definitely a very powerful sweeper. And then we also have Dazzling Gleam on it just for the spread damage. It makes it really fun. It also is carrying Tailwind. Tailwind is very powerful on this team, especially in best of one. Even in best of three is still good, but most of these teams are gonna have to be best of one because there's not really any in-person tournaments or any online tournaments that are really taking place with Regulation J. So for the most part, we're stuck on the ladder with Regulation J, right? So we might as well build some teams that have some surprises. So Tailwind is a huge surprise on this team because this team looks like it doesn't have proper speed control. And if they, either don't bring their Tailwind because they're afraid you might set up Trick Room with Indeedee, or you eliminate their Tailwind user because they feel like they can stagger it, then you just have a huge advantage with your team on Tailwind. With Chi-Yu, Landorus, the Urshifu, and Terapagos on Tailwind, and your opponent doesn't have speed control, you just win the game so fast, right? So this is a really fun team. This is probably going to be my favorite team of the month. That's why I'm kind of speaking about it first. The Terapagos, the Power Herb, I did want to try out Life Orb, but then I realized that Life Orb breaks the Terra Shell on Terapagos, and that's not something you want because the extra bulk that the Terra Shell gives it is really valuable. So we decided to go with Power Herb, which kind of gives you something similar to Life Orb. Once you get the Power Herb off, it gives you +1 on your special attack. And your +1 on your special attack, you're hitting like you have a Life Orb, right? So that's the idea behind it. And also, Volcarona, if you look at the team, it's pretty annoying for this team. Arceus can't really touch Volcarona. Urshifu, it can get burnt or it can tear into like a water type. And Urshifu just doesn't like to deal with it. Chi-Yu and Landorus can deal good damage to it. But if it gets a couple of Quiver Dances up, they don't really want to deal with it, right? So that's the idea behind the Meteor Beam. You can just one-hit KO Volcarona, even though it's not crazy common. It's just also a lot of Fire Terras and stuff that's going around to, especially like Fire Terra. You lead Arceus plus Terapagos. You can also nuke the Koraidon and for going for like Terra Fire, right? Because it's weak to the Fairy type move. So that's also something that you can do. Also, this team does force a lot of Terras. Urshifu with Choice Scarf forces Terras. Landorus forces Terras because it's threatening with Earth Power. Chi-Yu is also always forcing Terras. And Arceus also is going to force Terras with the fairy damage, right? So that makes it so Terapagos is super, super valuable in this format with this team, right? Because you can punish those Terras. Now, this team does have a lot of unique Terras, like the Steel Terra on Landorus. Well, not really unique, but it has a lot of Terras that I want to say are not really that valuable. So it leaves room for Terapagos to Terra, right? If you do drop your Terapagos one game, then it's a lot easier to Terra the Arceus. The Landorus, the Steel Terror is there specifically to go against Miraidon. If Miraidon goes for like Terra Fury, Dazzling Gleam, or Draco Meteor, the Steel Terror resists that, and they're never gonna click Electro type move into you because you're already a ground type. And what Miraidons like to do is just click Draco Meteor into Landorus, try to remove it before it can attack. You punish them for that with the Steel Terror, right? You get them to -2, and if they don't tear, you just one-shot them back with a Earth Power. And Substitute is also to catch your opponents playing passive. Once Landorus gets the Substitute up, it's super hard to deal with, right? So that's the idea behind the Landorus. Now, the MVP of this team, from my practices, because I haven't recorded actual gameplay with it yet, though, just practicing with the team, Chiyu with the Taunt and Focus Sash is just so valuable, right? Chiyu is just really valuable with a Focus Sash. Keeping an attack is huge for this team because Chiyu being able to just get a guaranteed attack off, because sometimes it's when you games Taunt. Also, people are not really expecting it, especially on best of one ladder. You shut down like a lot of different setup. I was able to shut down like a Cosmic Power Arceus and like a Drift Blend with like evasion strats with like Minimize and Baton Pass, and Chiyu just kind of shut that complete strategy down. So this team is really fun. I did rattle on a little bit about it because it's probably my favorite team of the month. But if you guys want to give it a try, there's a rental code up at the top right, as well as a Pokepaste down in the description below. Alright, next we're going to be looking at Shaymin Skyform. So Shaymin, I did see a couple people play with a Focus Sash variant. I wanted to build something a little different that makes my team a little bit more unique, so that, you know, people want to try this Shaymin team instead. So this team, Shaymin is going to also have Tailwind, but it functions as a setup to your special attackers. And like Shaymin, if you have it next to Iron Bundle, have it next to Miraidon or Ursaluna, and you get a Sea Flare off and drop something down to -2, you're just picking up KOs left and right? Even Iron Bundle, it doesn't really have a lot of special attack. Freeze Dry, if it's hitting something for super effective, it's still doing good damage, especially if you're dropping their special defense with Sea Flare, right? So that's also, you know, a really cool strategy. And Shaymin will outspeed Bundle if terrain is not up, so that you can go for that strategy. Otherwise, Bundle's just there to support Miraidon. Miraidon plus Bundle is very powerful into like Chiyu Flutter, Chiyu Flutter Mane, as well as Koraidon Flutter Mane, which is a really common lead. One fun thing to note about Bundle is it has 1 point in its speed to make it outspeed the Flutter Mane. That's the max speed Timid. It's 1 speed faster, right? So what you can theoretically do is you can Icy Wind the Flutter Mane, and then your Miraidon can attack the Flutter Mane or the Koraidon before the Flutter Mane can attack, because when Flutter Mane goes to -1, even though it's using, you know, its ability to get the +1 in speed from photosynthesis, when it rounds down, it's always going to be 1 point slower than your Miraidon, which is max speed Timid. So you automatically always outspeed it, right? So it's just Iron Bundle and Miraidon is really good into that core. And then, you know, Shaymin plus Miraidon. This Miraidon's actually Life Orb Protect, because I didn't want to run choice specs since Shaymin's already choice Scarf, and you didn't want to be locked into 2 choice moves with a lead that's very common for this team. And also, Miraidon have a Protect in this format with the Electric Terror. It's just something that's catches a lot of opponents off guard. They may double into it, you protect, and you kind of can win the game from there. Same thing with Frugraph is also carrying Protect, just because a lot of people like to pressure. The Trick Room in this team mode is really strong with Iron Hands, Frugraph, and Ursaluna, with Miraidon in the back. And a lot of opponents like to double into Frugraph and ignore the Iron Hands. This team can punish them for that, especially sometimes people might expect, you know, Miraidon Volt Switch into Ursaluna or Iron Hands. You set up Trick Room, you can just attack with Miraidon and protect with Frugraph and punish them for, you know, doubling the Frugraph slot to stop Trick Room. So that's the idea of why there's Protect on those 2 slots. The Ursaluna, since the Life Orb is being used by Miraidon, we went with Silk Scarf, so we can just get, you know, massive amounts of damage with our normal type attacks. And the Iron Hands also, Iron Landorus also was something that if you don't have Bundle, you can run into trouble with this team. And also things like Amoonguss, right? So the Iron Hands being able to hit Amoonguss and Landorus for super effective damage with Ice Punch is just really strong for this team, right? You also catch off some Terra Grass, some Terra Grounds and stuff like that. Opposing Ursaluna, you also hit them. Of course, you could just low kick them, but Ice Punch is just really good into a lot of different things in the format. So that's the idea behind that. Everything else is pretty standard on this team. We already know how the bundle is going to play. The Shaymin has Air Slash and Earth Power. Earth Power is just extra Earth coverage, or ground coverage, I should say. Just an extra tech move because I didn't know what else to put on it. And since we're running Choice Scarf, you're able to run 3 moves, right, and still run the Tailwind. And also, you can just the Ursaluna is a Turbo Bear, it's max speed Timid, so you can lead Shaymin and go Tailwind, and then you outspeed the Calyrex Shadow by a couple points because Ursaluna at max speed can outspeed it. And you're able to outspeed that with the Tailwind up. So just keep that in mind that this is a faster Ursaluna. So it's slightly less, it's not as bulky as the hard Trick Room Ursaluna, but it's fast enough to play on the fast part of this team, right? And also against really fast mons, you can play under Trick Room with it. So that's the idea behind that. But if you want to give this team a try, this team is also really fun. There's a rental code up at the top right, as well as the Pokepaste down in the description below. All right, next we have Mew. So I wanted to build a team around Mew, and there's a plethora of different sets that you can go with. But for this team, we decided to go with Calyrex Ice. So the idea behind Mew is a fun thing that you can do with Mew is that you can Trick Room with Calyrex and trick a Choice Scarf onto something on your opponent's team and make them really fast on the Trick Room so that they always get outsped, especially if you get like opposing Calyrex. You kind of just lock it into like being a Choice Scarf and they can't protect. And then you can either, outside of Trick Room, you can go for coaching into like all your physical attackers. You can go for coaching into your Ursaluna, coaching into, not Ursaluna, your Urshifu, coaching into Rillaboom, coaching into your Incineroar. And they're all able to do a lot of damage to the format. And we have, the balance core of Incineroar, Rillaboom, Urshifu, just to round out this team so it doesn't feel as gimmicky. But what Mew likes to do is trick the Choice Scarf onto something or either get fast coachings off. Transform with Choice Scarf allows you to transform into your opponent's mon turn 1. You can also steal their boost by transforming into them. Or under Trick Room, after your Calyrex attacks, if you trick away the Choice Scarf, your Mew can also transform into your Calyrex, and then you have 2 Calyrex, right? So it's really fun with that strategy. A lot of unique things that you can do with Mew. The Ghost Terror is just to get around Fake Out, since Mew doesn't have an ability that stops Fake Out, and you don't have any priority blocking on this team. And you really want to get off that trick. So sometimes you will have to Terra Ghost in case like there's a Incineroar out there because you don't want to get doubled up into. And the Dark Pulse is really there just the tech move to hit Calyrex Shadow. Calyrex Shadow doesn't expect probably a Dark Pulse from Mew or to get outsped by Mew. So just going for the Dark Pulse turn 1 can sometimes win you the game immediately because it just allows the rest of your team to thrive, right? And you think about outside of Mew, the rest of the team is very standard like balance core. Very consistent mons that are just good into everything. This gives you just matchups to everything, right? Among Us with Dark Terror also helps against Calyrex Shadow, so you can survive and put it to sleep. Covert Cloak, so Among Us can't be faked out since we're not running Protect. And I wanted to run Sludge Bomb since Terra Grass is something that's kind of common into Rillaboom and Among Us. And Sludge Bomb kind of punishes that in case they Terra Grass to get around to sleep. And Pollen Puff just to heal up your Calyrex or your Rillaboom and stuff. Because Rillaboom and Incineroar have some attack investment so they can take advantage of the coaching and still put out a lot of damage, right? Urshifu also with the Focus Sash, you get a coaching off into it with the Water Terror. It's just dealing a massive amounts of damage, right? So this is a really fun team, a very, very standard core that makes it feel really consistent. But the Mew kind of just makes the team just a lot more fun. So it's something with a unique flavor to it. But if you guys want to try this team out, there is a rental code up at the top right, as well as a Pokepaste down in the description below. One thing to note that the Calyrex does have Seed Bomb. I did initially go with high horsepower, but I decided that Seed Bomb was really cool into like a lot of the Terra Waters that try to slow down the Urshifu and your Calyrex, and sometimes Rillaboom is not around to deal with it, so that's why the Seed Bomb is on there. But you could switch that out for high horsepower to help. But I think this team just has a really good matchup. If you do run into Zamazenta, you really can. Your best answer to Zamazenta is going to be your Urshifu, and also your Incineroar can deal damage to it with like the coaching plus Flare Base, you Terra Ghost. That can help you deal with Zamazenta as well. So just keep that in mind. All right, let's go to the next one. All right, so next we have Pecharunt. So Pecharunt is going to be really cool because it's actually a choice spec set. So a lot of Pecharunt that we see your opponents are going to expect it to be like Poison Gas, just very slow, and they usually just get taunted. And then Pecharunt can't really do anything, right? Because that's really the only set that's ever been used on it that I've seen that people are doing. So we tried to go with something a little different. Pecharunt with the choice specs and that's the Chi is actually able to deal a lot of damage, especially with the Poison Terror. How do you pronounce that? Malignant Chain, or how do you pronounce this signature move, right? That's doing a lot of damage as a Chi-Yu, right? It's able to one-hit KO Rillaboom, which is really fun. And Rillaboons don't really expect, that amount of damage to come out from Pecharunt. And a lot of people taunt the Pecharunt when I was playing with it, and you just literally just attack with it, right? Also, the Hex is really cool because if you spore something with the Brute Bonnet, then you're able to deal some really good damage with Hex. Other than that, you're mostly going to be clicking Shadow Ball and threatening like a lot of damage. So Pecharunt is just a little bit more offensive. Another cool thing with this team that you can do is with Fluttermane, you can go Trick Room and Parting Shot with Pecharunt. It's a slower parting shot, so you can get Ursaluna in for free. And a lot of the times they don't double your Fluttermane slot because Pecharunt's on the field. And this allows Ursaluna to get in with Trick Room up, and you can kind of sweep your opponent from there, right? So this team is actually just kind of like a remake of the team that Geo used to win Worlds this year. And we pretty much switched the Fluttermane's Shadow Ball to Trick Room, and we switched out the Lunala for Pecharunt. So if you guys play that team and you feel kind of good with that team, then this team is going to feel a lot similar. Plays similar, but it's a lot of different techs on this team to make it have its own flavor. But like I said, Pecharunt is the biggest thing. It's a little bit more offensive than Lunala too, because it wants to be more aggressive, and it's able to play with the Icy Wind next to Fluttermane, and also able to play under Trick Room, right? And the Koraidon is actually going to be loaded dice. It's also, with the Scale Shot, you're able to have some unique coverage into like dragons that are weak to dragon, and it's just really good consistent damage with the Koraidon. And it's also something separate from the Flame Charge, right? I decided to go with that instead of the Life Orb because I wanted to have a little bit more sustainability with Pecharunt on the team and not having Lunala. So, and I just wanted it to just be a little bit different. We also going with Low Kick instead of the Close Combat, because Low Kick also keeps you from dropping your defenses. So this Koraidon is able to stick around a little bit longer than the Life Orb Koraidon, and it just gives it a little different flair. But this team is also really fun. So if you guys want to give it a try, there is a runner code up at the top right, as well as a Pokepaste down in the description below. Last thing to note that the Brute Bonnet is also Fire Terror plus Rocky Helmet. I felt like the Covert Cloak and the Water Terror was a little bit too predictable. So we wanted to switch it up a little bit, and it can't be doubled up into by like opposing Chi-Yu and Fluttermane. Usually they like to go for like Dark Pulse plus Moonblast into Brute Bonnet, and that can pick up the KO of you Water Terror. That it can't easily get that KO anymore with Fire Terror, and a lot of the times they expect you to be Covert Cloak, so they just don't fake you out. And Rocky Helmet just allows you to break sashes and things like that. So it's a really cool strategy for this Brute Bonnet. This makes it a little bit more annoying than the other Brute Bonnet. But this team, like I said, this team is really cool. So if you guys want to give it a try, there's a rental code up there for you. And last but not least, we have one more Arceus team. This team is also really fun. So I initially had a Volcanion on this team instead of the Arceus, but I wasn't able to get a Volcanion that I could play in games. So I decided to go with Arceus because I wanted to go ahead and get this video out, and I just didn't have time to get a Volcanion, right? So Arceus, I chose to go with the ground Arceus. This Arceus is really fun because it can tear into poison, and you can get stabbed on your Sludge Bomb. And it covers a lot of the format with electric coverage for like water terrors, Judgment with ground hitting like electric types, and then Sludge Bomb hitting things like Miraidon, which can be good into your team. And if tears in a fairy, then you can just hit it with terror poison Sludge Bomb. So this RC is also doing a lot of damage. It hits a lot of things across the board with Judgment, and it's just really strong. It partners really well with the Choice Scarf Kyogre. And we initially had Thunder on the Kyogre, but since we're running Thunder on Arceus, we just switched it for Hydro Pump, which gives Kyogre a single target water type move, so that you're able to get around Zamazenta, right? This team is not afraid of Zamazenta because you have the Hydro Pump and you have the Judgment on Arceus. And if they tear into something like water and Arceus can hit it with Thunder, if they tear it into Dragon or Grass, then Chien-Pao threatens it with Ice Spinners, right? And also Kyogre has Ice Beam. So this team is also very hyper offensive. The Dragonite and Chien-Pao is a strategy that's always been really good. The Chien-Pao is Terra Stellar, just so we're able to get stab on both Ice Spinner, Crunch, and Ice Shard. In case, well, not stab, but I mean a boost. Sometimes boosted Ice Shard is able to pick up a KO that your opponent might not expect, as well as like Crunch and Ice Spinner. So that's why we went with that. And we didn't need Terra Ghost because we have Frigoraph on this team. And Frigoraph is carrying a Mental Herb. Since we don't have Miraidon, there's no need for Electric Seed. Mental Herb just allows it to not be taunted in case you need to get a Trick Room up against your opponent. If you're playing against a very fast team that may outspeed your Kyogre or your Arceus, or Mostly Kyogre's not going to want to be on the Trick Room, but it also helps you reverse Trick Room. And sometimes Dragonite and Arceus can play on the Trick Room against faster teams. So that's the idea behind the Mental Herb, just so Farigiraf can't be taunted. And last but not least, the Dragonite and the Tornadus. Also a very powerful strategy. You can go for Tailwind plus Normal Terra Giga Impact, and then just pick up a 1-hit KO on something, right? A lot of opponents don't expect that much damage coming out from Dragonite. They may expect the Choice Band E-Speed, right? But the Giga Impact just does so much more damage, and your opponent might not be expecting that to come out. And then we went with Air Slash on Tornadus, because Air Slash with this Tornadus having speed on it actually can be really annoying to your opponents by flinching them. And also it gets around things like Wide Guard. Sometimes you don't have the opportunity to taunt. If there's like a opposing Farigiraf or Indeedee on the field, you can't taunt the Wide Guard. So it just helps you to get around Wide Guard so you can flinch things. And it offers just a different value from Bleak Wind and a different win con when your opponent's not expecting to get flinched by your Tornadus. So that's going to be the idea behind this team. Like I said, this team is also very fun. And the Arceus is very threatening with the Ground Terror Judgments when against things like Miraidon, which doesn't like the Terra in front of Kyogre. You kind of punish it with the Arceus, so it has to like Terra Fairy or Terra Electric, and then your Kyogre kind of punishes. So they partner very well together. And this Arceus also has, it has bulk on it that you won't expect, and it survives like a lot of hits that you think might KO the Arceus, right? So there's a Rentalz up at the top right, as well as a Pokepaste down in the description below. Let me know in the comment what you guys think about these teams for October. And let me know if you try any of them. We did have 2 Arceus team, and I think before the season finishes, we're gonna try to use as many Arceus forms as we can, because there's just so many different strategies that you can do. And for this month, we're using the ground type Arceus and the fairy type Arceus, right? And they're really fun, and I feel like they're 2 of the strongest Arceus sets outside of the normal Terra Arceus. So if you guys want to give it a try, just let me know which one you guys think is better down in the comments below if you try these teams. But that's going to be it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Stay tuned. More new videos soon. Deuces.